Firstly, let me say how much I'm appreciative to Mr. Brown for all that he has done to push humanity forward, for the impact that he has made. And Mr. Brown, I personally want to say how much I'm grateful to God, and I thank God just about every day for the day that our paths crossed. You are gracious, you're wise, and you're the quintessential picture of a transformational leader. And I want to welcome you today. Thank you for agreeing to be a part of our Facebook Live.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for doing this with me. And I just honor you and respect you, and have always had just high regard for who you've been and how you've shown up in life and the impact that you've made on me and your messages, your sermons, and your wisdom. It's just amazing. Each time I talk to you, I never come away without being empowered and just saying, what else is in there? She's got so much more. And as the movie Lion King, Simba, you are more than that which you have become. Well, you are more than that which you have revealed.
Thank you so much. We are here to talk about your book, your newest book, and I'm hungry. When we sent out the notification that I would be interviewing you, everybody was writing back, "I'm hungry," and I want to start off again with what I call rapid fire questions, and these questions really are just to get our viewers to know you a little bit more and connect with you in a different way. So here are my questions, and they're rapid fire questions. So what's your favorite color?
My favorite color is red.
And if you were stranded on an island for a month, and this is a twofold question, who would be an historical figure you would want to be on the island with you and why? And who would be a contemporary figure or individual that you would like to be on this island with you and why?
Nelson Mandela and Barack Obama.
Okay, why?
Because those are two bad dudes. when you come out of prison and become the president of the country that you were in prison, and you were able to go from being in prison like Joseph and go that far and become the most powerful man on the planet in South Africa and be as gracious as he was. I'd like to know, how did he maintain his sanity? When things happen to you, they make you better or they make you bitter. And he came out and he was gracious, he was loving. He could have punished his enemies. He did not. He had a conciliatory mindset of bringing the country together and unifying people. And so that takes a lot. Judge a man not by what he does, but what he does that he doesn't have to do. And to judge the true quality of a man is what he does when no one's looking. With President Barack Obama, he was the most powerful man on the planet. No one ever thought that would ever happen. And he showed a level of grace. I saw a meme that said, with his picture, "Do you miss me now?" And do we miss him now?
Yes, yes.
His level of poise and grace, his intelligence, and how he was inclusive, and his thinking, his conciliatory method of how he interacted with people, how he dealt with his enemies with class and poise. He demonstrated that class is not something that you can buy. You either have it or you don't have it. I remember giving a speech. I said, I saw a man one day who had no shoes, and I was feeling bad for him until I saw another man who had no class. Now, people in that who had no feet. Okay? That class is not something you can buy. It's something. It's who you are. It's about your character and how he represented himself and holding himself to the high standard. Henry David Thoreau said, "Do not go where the path may lead. Go where there's no path and leave a trail." For 8 years, this man, no indictments of his staff. that showed the quality of people that he surrounded himself with. None of his people ended up incarcerated. No undercover schemes to benefit his family. This is a totally different thing than what we have now. And so those two men, I think, are two of the greatest men on the planet that no one ever anticipated that would happen and held themselves to high standards. I heard something that Bishop T.D. Jakes said, Lord, don't let my talents take me where my character can't keep me. And they showed a level of strength of character that we all can admire today.
Wonderful, wonderful. And my final question is your favorite book of all time?
Other than the Bible,
Hmm.
the book written by my mentor, Mike Williams, he wrote a book called The Road to Your Best Stuff. I wrote the foreword to it. And the reason that I enjoyed that book so much is that it took me within myself. There are three things, three questions that if people don't handle those questions, that they will never begin to have access to their superpower. The first question is, who am I? It was Socrates who said the unexamined life is not worth living.
Hmm.
And the second question is, why are you here? They said the two most important days in your life, the day that you're born and the day that you realize why you were born. And the third question is, where are you going? When you answer those three questions, that gives guidance to the choices that you make and gives you access to your superpower to live a life that will outlive you.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, one of my favorite books is written about by you. You got to be hungry.
Thank you.
And I want to begin to talk about this amazing book with a quote, direct quote from your book. You said, Dr. Miles Monroe, the great preacher and orator, said, the wealthiest place on the planet is not in the Far East, where there is oil in the ground. It's not in South Africa, where there are diamond mines. The wealthiest place on the planet is the cemetery, for there you will find leaders who have never stepped up, innovators or innovations the world has never been exposed to, talents and potential never realized. I am reminded of another man who said, oh God, to reach the point of death only to realize you have never lived, only to realize that you never scraped the surface of your potential. I remember reading about a woman who had just left the doctor's office after having been told she had terminal cancer. She made herself a cup of coffee when she returned home, and as she sipped it, she suddenly filled with anger, with rage, and hurled the cup against the wall and shattered it in many pieces. And as she threw it, she screamed out, I refuse to die and unlive life. And then ending that section, you said this, the only way that you can break through the atmosphere and reach higher altitudes is by being hungry. Hunger is the most crucial element of creating your greatest life. I love this book because I thought that was a great way of capturing our attention. Why this subject of hunger and using that as an analogy or a metaphor? Why did you choose to use hunger as a metaphor for desire?
If you are casual about your dream, you will end up a casualty with your dreams. That most people unconsciously die long before they're buried because they don't realize that they have been marginalized, that they live in a culture where they're told more about what they cannot do rather than what they can do. We've been programmed to think in terms of being one dimensional, of being an employee, of going to college, graduating, getting a job, working for 40 years, expecting to retire on 40%, which wasn't enough in the first place. The 40-40 plan is gone. It's been interrupted. And so, but most people are not aware of that. The great anthropologist, Margaret Mead, was in London and she was having dinner. So one of the waiters said, you know, there's several Americans here tonight. And so she said to her guests, let me show you something. She said, let me know when you serve them dessert and I'll tell you exactly how many are here. He said, you couldn't possibly. She said, just let me know when you serve them dessert. And so when he left, he came back. He said, okay, I've served them dessert. She got up and she walked around and she said, there are 35 Americans in this restaurant. He looked at the roster. He was shocked. He said, how did you know that? She said, in the UK, when you eat a slice of pie or cake, you eat it from the crust toward the tip. In America, when we eat a slice of pie or cake, we eat it from the tip toward the crust. How do you eat a slice of pie?
I eat a slice of pie from the crust to the tip.
Yeah, now, so you're an exception because you came up in a British culture,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So, but
Mm-hmm.
the average American will eat a slice of pie from the tip toward the crust.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no one told us to do that. We just picked it up.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, before 1980, you walk around, you would not see people with tattoos. The majority of people that you see today have tattoos. Where'd that come from? How could that happen? What created that? There was no advertising on television saying, go out and get a tattoo. Well, in America, we incarcerate more people than any place else in the world. And in prison, you're not allowed to draw on the walls. You're not allowed to use your artistic skills on the walls of the prison. There's a penalty. You'll be penalized. You'll be put in the hole in solitary confinement. So they're bored. They have nothing else to do. And so they write on each other's bodies. They write tattoos. So now, when you see people today, all on television and commercials, you see tattoos everywhere. Nobody told them to go out and get it. But
Mm-hmm.
being in the culture, there's some things that you pick up. And so picking up
Mm-hmm.
a limited vision of yourself is natural when you're in a culture that does not recognize your greatness, that does not recognize your humanity, and
Mm-hmm.
create a culture that is designed to destroy your sense of self. And so, in
Mm-hmm.
order to break out of that, to realize that you are made in the likeness and image of God, to realize that you've been given authority and dominion over everything on the face of the earth, that it takes everything in you. People that are hungry are unstoppable. People that are hungry are relentless. People that are hungry will find a way to win. People that
Mm-hmm.
are hungry will not take no for an answer. People that are hungry won't give up. They will persist until they succeed.
Mm.
That's what's required to make it today.
Yes, yes, definitely. You talk about in your book, you talk about the lion being arguably the most magnificent and majestic beast in the jungle and the most ferocious hunter. So, and one of the reasons you said is because it's motivated by hunger. So, as a child, Mamie Brown's baby boy, I want to talk about the hunger that you had as a child that shaped and molded your career path, your journey, and how you were able to satiate that.
Well, there's two major events as a kid that I experienced. Dr. Martin Seligman, who wrote a book called Learned Optimism, it's a 26-year most exhaustive study on self-esteem. He said between the ages of 5 and 0, from when you're a baby to 5, that during that time, we determine what's available to us and what's not available to us. During that time, we develop a mindset and behaviors that follow us for the rest of our lives. When I was 5 years old, I used to go to work with my mother when she cleaned homes on Miami Beach. Our neighbors didn't want to keep me. They said I was too much of a problem, that I was touched in the head.
And thank God you're still touched.
Yes, that's right. I'm too touched. And two defining moments. All of us have moments in our lives that there's before this and there's after this, and after this nothing will ever be the same again. And my mother worked for a lady named Miss Harris, and Miss Harris wanted her to go in a room and find a hat. And she went in the room, and when she went in the room, she started clapping her hands. And I said, Mama. And she said, what? I was in the kitchen moving some spots off the floor. I said, why are you clapping your hands? And she said, don't you worry. You just keep on doing what you're doing. Don't worry about what I'm doing. And then she said, when she came out of the room, she said, it's not in that room. So Miss Harris said, go look in the other room over there. And sure enough, when my mother went in that room, I heard this clapping sound. I said, Mama. And this time she's irritated. What is it, Leslie? I said, why are you clapping your hands? And she said, don't you worry. You just get those spots up off the floor. And then Miss Harris came over to me and she said, I can tell you why she's clapping her hands. And I put the sponge down and the brush, and I stood up and I said, why, ma'am? And I looked her in the eyes. And during this time, I'm 75 years old. So during this time, you weren't supposed to look white people in the eyes. And I said, why, ma'am? She said, when I have coloreds looking for something in another room and I can't see them, I make them clap their hands to make sure they're not stealing.
Mm.
She said that. I said, Miss Harris, my mother is not a thief. When she comes to clean your home and she talk about your children to our neighbors, she said, my children, the Harris children, my mother would never steal from you or anybody.
Mm.
And she just turned and she walked away. She was shocked that I would say that during that time, you weren't supposed to be what she would call defiant.
Mm.
And I started scrubbing the floor again and tears just draining out of my eyes. And I was angry. And we were coming back from the Venetian Causeway from Miami Beach to Overtown. And Mama said, Leslie, what's wrong with you, boy? I said, Mama, I want to be a man. She said, you'll be a man soon enough. I said, I want to be a man now. She said, why? I said, if I was a man now, we wouldn't have to wait till other people eat. And then you bring
Mm.
home what they have not eaten. I could buy groceries for us. If I was a man now, we would not have to wear hand-me-down clothes that other
Mm.
people have worn. I can buy new clothes for us. If I was a man now, I'll be able to take care of you. You never have to pay bills. I come from old schools.
Mm.
I don't believe that a woman should pay bills. A
Mhm.
man, I'm not talking about a grown
Mm.
boy, a man paid the bills.
Mm.
A woman, if she wants to work, she works if she chooses to. But
Mhm.
a woman is not supposed to pay bills. And my mother raised us like that. And so I just got very quiet and she didn't say anything else, but she knew that that was a moment that I would never forget. I said, and then nobody will ever make you clap your hands again. No,
Mm.
you will never have to work. And
Mm.
that stayed in my mind. But another moment was when we were downtown in Miami, about 95 degrees, and the there was a water fountain I saw in the distance, and I let my mother's hand go, and I ran to the water fountain, and I started drinking from the water fountain. My mother grabbed me by the neck and slung me to the ground, and she started hitting me in my head and my face with a crazed look in her eyes. I said, Mama, it's me, it's me, it's me, Mama.
Mm.
And then after that, a policeman came over and he had a billy club in his hand and he kept hitting his hand. He said, okay, you can stop beating that little nigger boy now.
Mm.
I won't have to hit him. And he
Mhm.
walked away laughing,
Mm.
just laughing. And my mother, she started crying. As she picked me up, my eye was swollen. And she said, Leslie, I'm so sorry. I said, Mama, why did you beat me like that? She said, had that policeman hit you with his billy club, he would have had to kill me. And I would have left you and your brothers and sisters by
Mm.
yourselves.
Mm. Mm.
So I had to do something to distract him. I'm so sorry. And I
Mm.
said, it's okay, Mama. It's okay. It's okay. Don't cry no more. I'm fine. It didn't hurt that bad. It's okay. And then it just made me realize the kind of world that I'm living in. That a grown man would beat me, got a gun, got a billy club, and go beat me because I'm drinking from a water fountain because the water fountain was for whites only.
Mm.
That's why he was going to beat me. That was the law, the prevailing law of the land.
Mhm.
And so that was a defining moment. And there was a hunger for me to, I don't care what the law says, I'm going to create a life for my mother and my brothers and sisters that we can live like they live. I'm going to find a way to make money so I can buy my mother a home so that when I turned 18, she would never have to work again and pay another bill. And when I turned 18, my mother never had to pay another bill. I shined shoes. I collected aluminum and copper and took it over to Pepper's junkyard and sold it. I cut grass. I did every menial job. I was a spot boy where white men would come by in trucks and say, "Hey, boy, come here. And you want to work?" And I said, "Yes." And they would take us to move heavy furniture, heavy equipment. And I
Mhm.
did everything to generate income so that my mother would not have to work. So
Yeah.
that was two defining moments in my life.
Wow. I have a saying that your pain point becomes your prayer point that points you to your purpose and your assignment. And I think, the journey is just as important as the destination. And you talked about defining moments.
Hmm.
And I love how your book opens, and it opens up with these large, bold captions: buried treasures. And being hungry also points you towards those buried treasures, the potential that's hidden on the inside of you. I remember even my story, being hungry and digging up these old bottles that you take back to the store. And they were Coke bottles, I remember distinctly. And washing these old bottles out and take them to the store and getting 10 cents and coming back home to an impoverished environment and having an extra 10 cents to support my mother, and becoming an entrepreneur at the age of 8 out of necessity. And so let's talk about buried treasure and why you opened the book with this, because your story and my story has a lot of similarities, and our journey, the journey that we took to being where we are today. But every author has a journey. And how has your journey actually influenced you as a best-selling author, as a business mogul and motivational speaker? How has that influenced you?
Well, being born in an abandoned building on a floor with a twin brother, Wesley,
Mhm.
and then after 6 weeks, we were taken in as foster kids by Mrs. Mamie Brown. I am on this broadcast with you because of two women. One gave me life, and the other one gave me love. I
Mm,
always say that God took me out of my biological mother's womb and placed me in the heart of my adopted mother. And I always quote Abraham Lincoln, who said, "All that I am and all that I ever hope to be, I
mhm,
owe to my mother." And so that being in that environment, born in that environment, but most of all, the impact and the influence of the character of my mother, her faith, her drive, her determination. I remember a reporter when I had a talk show, King World, and they paid me $5 million to do it. And the reporter asked her, "How did you know that you could raise 7 children by yourself that you've adopted as a single woman?" And she said, "I just felt that the Lord would make a way somehow." And that has driven me that I don't, I talk to people, you don't know what you can't do. You don't know enough about yourself to be a cynic. That
mhm,
there are things that we can do. We are more than conquerors. We're here, I strongly believe, to do the greater work. And that we don't have to operate out of the thinking of being logical and practical and realistic. I believe leap and grow your wings on the way down.
yes, yes,
That
yes,
we must
yes.
become risk takers. We're taught to walk by faith and not by sight. And so my environment, it created within me a mindset of being unstoppable, of believing, of trusting, and living an expanded life. Most people live a small life because they have this limited vision of what's possible for them based upon the culture that they live in and the
Mm,
conversations. that they have been exposed to, and they don't even know. It's unconscious. And so we've all had moments in our lives when we've done things outside of our comfort zone, and we say, wow, I can't believe that I'm doing this. Because now, when you operate out of your comfort zone, in order to do something you've never done, you've got to become someone you've never been. That's why Paul said, I must die daily. We must die daily to who we are to give birth to who we are destined to become. But most
Yes.
people don't realize, and they don't evolve. They get on a track and they stay on that same track and never get off that particular track. And they take their talents, their abilities, their skills, their dreams with them to the grave. And so when Miles Monroe said that the wealthiest place on the planet is the cemetery, that's real. My best friend, when he died, he was a great cook. And he always talked about having this recipe book that he was going to have. He fixed great Jamaican and Caribbean dinners and plates. He was a master chef. And I'll never forget when I left his graveside after the funeral, a lady came up to me and said, did Alexander, we called him Boo, did Alexander ever write that recipe book? And I said, no. And she said, whoa, he took that with him. He took that with him. And so most people take their talents, their abilities, their skills, their knowledge, the things lying dormant in us. We were not born to be one dimensional. We were born to do things, to experiment with life, to become a risk taker. Viscott said, if you're not willing to risk, you can't grow. And if you can't grow, you can't become your best. And if you can't become your best, you can't be happy. And if you can't be happy, then what else is there? I love what Mary McLeod Bethune said. Pray as if everything depends upon God, and work as if everything depends upon you. Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts should be established. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. So you don't have to know. Do the best that you can, and God will do what you can.
Thank you so much. What an amazing answer. I have someone that just texted me not too long ago. And one of the questions he asks, he said, like Mr. Brown, I was adopted. What were the circumstances when discovering what were the circumstances when you discovered you were adopted? And how did that shape your mind as a motivational speaker? And it's a two-part. The second part is being a top motivational speaker and best-selling author your job or your purpose?
It's my purpose.
Hmm.
Yes. We were not born to work for a living. We were born to live our making. And making our living will earn whatever we want to earn in terms of life. I was born to speak. My children tell me I talk in my sleep. I used to get in trouble in school for talking so much. Now, when I speak in the United States, I earn $70,000 an hour. There are people who work a whole month that don't earn that. And when I speak outside of the United States, I earn $225,000 an hour. So when you connect with your superpower, there are things that you're able to do that you don't even know how to do, but you will find a way to do it. When I spoke in the Georgia Dome, I'd never done that before. And people go on YouTube and put in Les Brown speaking in the Georgia Dome. They'll see me speaking before 80,000 people. That's confirmation when they see that. They can do more. Remember in the Lion King, Simba,
Yeah.
you are more than that which you have become. They will
Yes.
realize, oh my God, if he could do that. I was labeled educable, mentally retarded, and put back from the 5th grade into the 4th grade and failed again in the 8th grade. They said I was a troubled kid, that I was touched in the head, that I run my mouth too much. Okay. And now, I mean, I get paid to speak. What a
Yeah.
mighty
Yeah.
God we serve. When I get up in the morning, I say, oh God, all things work together for good for those who love God and for those who are called according to his purpose. And so when you in alignment with your purpose, you will be able to do things that you don't even realize and know that you cannot do. That's why we're told to walk by faith and not by sight. We're told, judge not according to appearances. And
Hmm.
so this is how I live my life. I didn't know I could do this. And sometimes you have to be intelligently ignorant.
Yes,
According to the
yeah.
laws of aerodynamics, a bumblebee isn't supposed to fly, but the
Mhm.
bumblebee doesn't know it. So it just
Mhm.
keeps on flying anyhow.
Yes. And I often say, Mr. Brown, that we're all winging it. And
Yeah.
so we're all winging it. So one of the things I love about listening to you, and I listen to you every single day,
Oh, thank
um, and not too many people get my attention like that, I could tell you.
you.
But you have a brilliant mind, and your ability to take a quote, one quote, and build an entire message around that is nothing short than brilliance. And
And
one of
you have
the
that gift too, because one of my favorites that you do, but God, come on, somebody. Let me tell you something. I was running around the house and accidentally fell, flipped, and hit my head and left myself half conscious with a hickey on my head. Shout to but God. You messed me up with that one there.
I love how you do that, how you massage a text and you massage the hearts and minds of individuals. And it's a gift, to tell you the truth. But you refer to the British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli, who happens to be one of my favorite philosophers and politicians of all time. But you quote, "Nothing can resist a human will that will stake even its existence on its stated purpose." Over the years, what have you seen as the largest barrier for people to find greatness?
Their own inner conversation, their, as psychologists would call, their self-explanatory style.
Mm.
There's an African proverb that I use often. If there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm.
Mhm.
And Shakespeare said, the fault, dear Brutus, it's not in our stars, but in ourselves that we are underlings. And when we think about where we are and who we are, the biggest thing that we have to overcome, and I think that Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who wrote the book, The Miseducation of the Negro, he said,
Yes.
if you can determine what a man shall think, you never have to concern yourself with what he will do. He said, if you can make a man feel inferior, you never have to compel him to seek an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. And if you can make a man feel justly an outcast, you never have to order him to go to the back door. He'll go without being told. And if there's no door, his very nature will demand
Look.
one.
Mm.
In the United States, it was a capital offense if we got caught learning how to read. Just imagine that. Learning how to read. They would hang you if you were a slave. They would shoot you and kill you. Frederick Douglass, in his autobiography, talks about the fact that the slave master came home one day and found his wife teaching Frederick Douglass how to read. And he took Frederick Douglass out in the back of the house and he tied him to a guardrail, wooden guardrail, and he beat him with a buggy whip within an inch of his life and cut it loose, and he fell down unconscious. And he went in the house. And Frederick Douglass was bleeding and he crawled under the house. And he overheard the slave master yelling at his wife, I told you, never teach a slave to read, because if he learns how to read, he'll never be satisfied being a slave. And Frederick Douglass, under the house, nursing his wounds, decided that he was going to teach himself to read. Frederick
Mm.
Douglass went on to become one of the greatest abolitionists and great orators of that day. He went on to become an entrepreneur. He owned several banks in the South and traveled around the world because he learned how to read and to educate himself.
Mm. Now that's hunger.
Yes.
That is a great example of someone being hungry. You know, you have all of these things stacked up to against you, culture, where you were born. It's like it's all stacked up against you. And life is not a puzzle. To me, it's a mosaic because a puzzle is a finished picture that
Yes.
has been deliberately cut but meant to be put together. And a mosaic is broken pieces that were never meant to be put together. And we're able to take the broken pieces of our lives and make something absolutely beautiful. And to me, it reminds me of something that you talk about in your book, having a sense of urgency. And you gave a great example of Frederick Douglass. But what does that look like in modern times, Mr. Brown?
We don't know how much time we have left. We
Hmm.
all are going to leave here. We all have an expiration date. Millions of dollars were promoted on a concert by Michael Jackson's group saying this is it. This was going to be his last world tour. He had no idea that concert was never going to take place. I was in South Africa, and Dr. Miles Monroe was across the street from me, the same hotel area. And so I went over to see him because I wrote the foreword to his first book, Your Personal Potential. And so I told the lady, I said, I'm Les Brown. She said, I know who you are. I said, I'd like to see Dr. Miles. She said, Dr. Miles is having a seminar with couples. I said, if you let him know that I'm here, I said, I guarantee you, he will come out here or he'll call me in there. She said, I'm going to do something better. She said, I'm going to set up breakfast for you tomorrow morning with Dr. Miles. I reluctantly agreed. And I know all of us have had moments in ourselves when we say, boy, if I had just listened to my first mind, because I wanted to press her on that. I wanted to see him then. But I said, okay. Went down early the next morning. She came down. She said, oh, I'm so sorry. He's already gone. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call. Dr. Miles was killed in a plane crash. I was at a table in Caesar's Palace. Gladys Knight and I were married at the time. And I heard Frank Sinatra say to a young man, live each day as if it were your last, because one day it
It
will be.
will be.
Yes.
Mm,
And so we have to live like that. Live each day as if it were your last, because we are here for an appointed time and we have to work while there's still light and do the work that we came here to do. And so many dreams have lost out and never came true. There's a quote I love:
mm,
many a flower has bloomed unceasingly and wasted sweetness upon the cold desert air. That
mhm,
many talented and gifted persons have gone
mm,
unnoticed, and the world never had a chance to be exposed to their genius.
mhm. And I quote that in one of my books called Prevail. You're talking about the urgency of now. Whatever you're going to
Yeah.
do it now.
Do it now.
And before I give you my last question, Mr. Brown, and this is not the last time that you'll see us together, but the urgency of now. What I want everyone to do right now is to go online and download this book. It's an amazing book. It's one of my favorite books now, way up there with Isaacson book that he wrote on Stephen Jobs, way up there with Og Mandino, with Viktor Frankl, way up there with some of the best and the brightest minds that have ever written. The urgency of now compels me to say to everyone, go right now, download the book. If you never had an opportunity to personally speak to Mr. Brown, he is a living legend. And I have the opportunity to call him my mentor and also colleague and friend. And we're going to be doing some things together, and I want you to stay tuned. I'm excited about our relationship for many, many different reasons. But right now, while you're listening to us on Facebook, go online. It's there. You can Google it. You can download it on your Kindle. You can get it from Amazon. As soon as he told me that the book was published, I downloaded mine, and I told everybody about it. Now I get an opportunity to really give all of us a chance to carry a literary mentor in your hand. And that's what that book is. It's a literary mentor. It's like talking to Mr. Brown face to face. And I realize that you are tuning in from around the world, and we are quarantined. And for many people, they have been sequestered. But if you want to read something that's uplifting, if you want to have engaging conversations about all of the principles that are talked about in this book, if you want to encourage your children, especially those of you that are millennials and teenagers, and even some of the younger ones. I remember being 8, 9, 10, and 11. My mother put a book down, and I picked up the book that she put down. Some of the books I shouldn't have been reading, but I would pick up the books that my mother would put down. And that was the journey that got me out of abject poverty. It was a book. And today we have a living legend that we can speak to, we can enjoy while he's around. I always wanted to meet Nelson Mandela. That was one of my biggest drives and one of my biggest hunger. And the second person that I wanted to meet was Stephen Jobs.
Hmm.
And the third person I wanted to meet was Mr. Les Brown.
I'm in some good
Never
people.
had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Jobs, but I've certainly read everything I could, followed his life. I didn't get an opportunity for Mr. Nelson Mandela. I've certainly read everything. I didn't get a chance to talk to Mother Teresa, to Sir Winston Churchill, to Nelson Mandela. But I have an opportunity while he's alive to talk to communicate, to excavate his brain, to find out how God wired this amazing gift to humanity. And he's a living legend. And today, Mr. Brown, thank you so much for influencing my life and influencing so many other movers and shakers. I see a world filled with innovators and dreamers who influence individuals to dream and to become innovators. I see this world. And you are a catalyst. You are a divine gift to all of us, and all of us that are alive today, Mr. Brown, are blessed to be alive during a generation in which you are born. You are not only a history maker, but for people like myself and those that have the opportunity to hear you, whether it's on a platform, whether it's to read your book, or even now using modern technology, we are blessed to be alive during a generation that you're alive. Thank you for everything that you have done for us, for moving the needle for all humanity, for encouraging some of the best and brightest thinkers. You've influenced everyone from those that are sitting as political leaders right down to those that have dreams, that are working as marginalized workers on the fringes of society. And you have helped us to dream again. And in conclusion, and this is just the beginning of something that we'll be doing on an ongoing basis, but
Yes, may I say
just
something, please?
just sure,
You're
just
very modest. Ladies and gentlemen, she's very modest. I'm one of her mentees. She mentors me. You're never too old to learn. I'm 75, and you're never too young to teach. And she's only 29. And so she teaches me, and I'm so grateful. But I want to ask you a question. Do you mind?
sure.
In the last chapter, I talk about there are three dimensions of us: our private life, our public life, and our secret life. When you read the last two chapters of the book, how did that impact you?
I have a lot of answers for that, but I'm going to try to make it as short as I possibly can. Um, this book, period, hands down, is a gift to humanity because what you do with this book, a lot of authors have not done. You made the reader the hero, and you became like a tour guide, and you helped us to go inside of ourselves to that secret place and ask those hard questions, difficult questions. The question about who I am as an individual and my personal brand, and what it is that I was called to do, to not only clarify it, but to have the courage to do it. And then finally, to be able to ask and answer, and to be comfortable enough to say, I'm that person that the world has been waiting for. And I am stepping out of the shadows of the confinement of being in one space,
Mhm.
and to risk and to dare to create a platform, to enlarge that platform as a mover and shaker and history maker, along with all of the other people that I admired. And that last chapter is a catalyst that gives you the boost. You either see it as a call to action, or as a mirror that exposes the um, procrastination, and a mirror that exposes the greatness that is on the inside of you. And so I hope that makes sense.
It
But
does, yeah.
it gave me it along with the internal GPS that I have, that I was born with it. And it's a GPS that allows me to not see obstacles, to only see opportunities. And that has allowed me over the years never to ask permission to do what I'm called to do. I'm not wired like the average person. I'm not intimidated by anything. There's no sets of circumstances that is presented to me that I feel is not a gift from God. And I'm not wired to be afraid of anything or anyone. And that's just my wiring. And it came as a result of being number six of seven children, being abandoned by my father,
Mm.
growing up in abject poverty, running out of everything, including water, and knowing that if it was going to be, it was up to me, and using my greatest gift, and that's my gift of gab, like you,
Yeah, that's your
and
superpower.
honing that, embracing that, honing that, but also to understand the fact that the world does not offer me or owe me anything, but
Right.
I owe the world everything. And that potential is the gift that God gave me, but maximizing that potential is my gift that I give back to God, and I give to humanity. And that's what I do every single day. I say to my husband, look, I can sleep when I die, but right now I want to squeeze every second out of every moment. And whenever we have outgrown a realm or a stage in our lives, God always introduces another person into our lives. And the speed of revelation and the source of information becomes the impetus for our next. And I'm grateful that the speed and the source that God gave me was you. And I say it not to not to placate you, because you don't need that. But I say it out of sincerity and the purity of heart, that everybody needs a Les Brown. And we have the greatest opportunity, and I have the greatest opportunity, Mr. Brown, to be the legacy that you leave.
Mhm.
And also to have an opportunity for us to see two people of color, a male and a female, on the same stage with the same drive. And that's to give people tools, not to describe what a tool does, but to help them to use that tool. And that tool is on the inside of them, and it's called potential. And I want to thank you. And that's a long answer.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And that's a great answer.
Yeah.
you.
So I'm going to end with this last question. Why should people buy your book? Why?
If they're ready for a transformation, if they want to learn how to navigate these uncertain times where so many people are feeling powerless, hopeless, and stuck, that this will be the master key to unlocking a brand new future for themselves. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. This is Mamie Brown's baby boy and Dr. Cindy Trimm's pride and joy.
Thank you so much. So, for those of you that are listening, make sure that you pick up a copy of the book. You'll be hearing more from Mr. Brown over the next couple of weeks. Mr. Brown, thank you once again. And until we meet again, stay safe, stay blessed, stay hungry,
Yeah,
and know that God is with us all. God
yeah,
bless everybody until we meet again.
yeah.
Thank you once again.
God bless you.
Goodbye for now.
Thank you. Bye now.